The angelic power given to God's chosen end, time messengers, is not a random gift, nor something that can be imitated or counterfeited by those who are not called. It is a sacred impartation directly from the throne of heaven, and it carries the seal of divine authority that shakes both the visible and invisible realms. This power is not granted for pride, recognition, or worldly influence, but for the fulfillment of a divine assignment that has been ordained before the foundation of the world. The chosen ones who receive it are not ordinary people, nor are they elevated by human standards. They are individuals who have walked through the fire of affliction, endured spiritual wilderness, and remained faithful when everything around them tried to break their spirit. It is in that secret place of suffering, purification, and surrender that God molds them into vessels capable of carrying the weight of heaven's authority. This angelic power is not like earthly strength or human influence, for it operates on a higher plane where angels themselves stand as witnesses and partners. The chosen messengers do not summon this power at will, for it is not theirs to control. Rather, it flows through them as a manifestation of God's will in critical moments when His purposes must be fulfilled. When they speak, their words carry an unseen fire. When they pray, the atmosphere shifts and the spiritual environment realigns itself to heaven's order. They become living conduits through which divine decrees are released, and this is why their presence alone often stirs opposition, resistance, or even fear in those bound by darkness. It is not the individual who intimidates, but the authority resting upon them. The chosen ones are marked by a unique spiritual fragrance that cannot be imitated. Angels are drawn to them, surrounding them in times of battle, ministering to them when the burden grows heavy, and guarding them when unseen forces attempt to derail their mission. This angelic partnership is one of heaven's greatest mysteries, for it reveals the closeness between the divine realm and the earthly vessels appointed to carry out God's end, time work. When these messengers stand before the multitudes, or even a single lost soul, they are never standing alone. The armies of heaven march with them, unseen by human eyes, but deeply felt in the spirit. This is why darkness trembles and strongholds begin to collapse wherever they are sent. Carrying such angelic power is not glamorous, nor is it without great cost. Those chosen by God to receive it often experience deep isolation, betrayal, and rejection from those closest to them. The world rarely understands their calling, and even religious systems may misjudge or oppose them because their anointing breaks structures and exposes falsehoods. Yet these trials are not punishments but preparations. Every wound, every moment of being misunderstood, and every test of faith chisels their character and deepens their reliance on God. For without absolute surrender, no vessel could withstand the weight of the angelic authority placed upon them. The chosen ones understand that the power they carry is not theirs to boast of but God's to manifest, and with it comes a sacred responsibility to remain humble, obedient, and steadfast in truth. When the angelic power moves through them, it does not simply affect people's emotions. It penetrates the spiritual core of those listening. Shackles that have bound minds for generations are broken. Invisible chains of fear, addiction, and deception fall away under the weight of heavenly authority. It is not a matter of eloquence or intellectual reasoning, but the raw, undeniable movement of God's Spirit partnering with angelic forces to accomplish what human strength never could. In these moments, the chosen ones become living instruments of divine intervention, their voices echoing not their own thoughts, but the decrees of heaven. The presence of angelic power also equips them to stand fearless in the face of great opposition. As the end times draw near, darkness grows bolder and evil manifests in more blatant ways. Yet God does not leave His messengers unequipped. The angelic power acts as both a shield and a sword, guarding them from destruction and empowering them to cut through lies, illusions, and strongholds. When an end-time messenger stands in the midst of chaos, they embody divine order. When they speak into confusion, clarity emerges. When they confront demonic opposition, it is not merely their words but the weight of angelic authority that brings victory. The chosen ones also carry a discernment that is sharpened by their connection to this heavenly power. They see beyond surface appearances, recognizing spiritual realities that others overlook. They can sense deception even when it is cloaked in light, and they are not easily swayed by flattery or intimidation. This discernment is crucial in the final days, when many voices rise to mislead and false prophets attempt to mimic the works of God. The angelic power within the true messengers exposes what is false and illuminates what is hidden, ensuring that the truth of God's kingdom cannot be silenced or corrupted. Though many may long for such an anointing, few are willing to endure the refining process required to carry it. The chosen ones have been stripped of reliance on human strength, wealth, and recognition, for these things cannot sustain angelic authority. Their trust lies solely in God, and their hearts remain anchored in His will, regardless of cost. They know that the power entrusted to them is not for building personal kingdoms, but for advancing the eternal kingdom. They walk with a holy awareness that every action, every word, and every assignment carries eternal weight. This power also manifests in subtle ways that are not always dramatic or visible. Sometimes it is the still presence that calms a storm within a person's heart, or the quiet prayer that unleashes breakthrough behind the scenes. Sometimes it is the unshakable peace that rests on them even in the midst of chaos, testifying to the reality of a higher authority. In both the extraordinary and the ordinary, the angelic power works continuously, fulfilling God's purposes without drawing attention to itself. The chosen ones are simply vessels, and they know that the true glory belongs to the one who called and empowered them. In the days ahead, this angelic authority will become increasingly necessary, for the battles of the end times are not fought with weapons of flesh and blood, but with the unseen might of heaven. The messengers chosen for this era will not only speak truth, but embody it, standing as beacons of light in a world drowning in deception. Their very lives will be testimonies of God's power, their endurance proof of His sustaining grace, and their victories reminders that the kingdom of heaven is advancing despite the schemes of darkness. Only those purified, tested, and set apart by God can carry this supernatural anointing, for it is a sacred trust granted to lead souls in the final days. There is nothing casual about the selection process of heaven, because what God places on His end-time messengers is weighty, eternal, and holy. It cannot be given to those who are double-minded, prideful, or unwilling to walk through the refining fire. This anointing requires a soul that has been crushed and remade, a spirit that has learned dependence on God in the wilderness, and a heart that has been emptied of selfish ambition. The chosen ones do not stumble into this calling by accident, for they have been set apart from the beginning, though they may not have always understood the path their lives would take. Every hardship, betrayal, delay, and test they have endured was shaping them into vessels worthy of holding a power that could easily destroy someone unprepared. The purification process of God is not gentle, but it is purposeful. Those destined to carry this anointing are stripped of attachments that would weigh them down. Friendships fade, relationships break, opportunities collapse, and comforts disappear, not because God is cruel, but because He knows that anything which competes for their loyalty could contaminate the purity of their calling. Like gold refined in fire, they are placed in situations that burn away the dross, leaving behind a faith that cannot be shaken and a character that cannot be bought. Many resist this process, but those who are truly chosen surrender, understanding that to be trusted with such power means to be emptied of everything that belongs to the flesh. Testing is another crucial part of their preparation. God does not entrust supernatural authority to those who have not been tested in secret places. These messengers are often faced with situations where obedience costs them everything, where faith must rise without visible proof, and where their loyalty to God is challenged by every earthly desire. They may be tempted with wealth, recognition, or influence, yet they are called to walk away, proving that their devotion is not for sale. They may be misunderstood, mocked, or even persecuted, yet their response reveals a heart anchored in heaven rather than swayed by the opinions of people. Each test refines them further, teaching them to discern between what is temporary and what is eternal, what is flesh and what is spirit. Through these tests, they learn humility, patience, and unwavering trust in God, qualities that must be present in anyone who will lead others in the perilous days to come. Being set apart is the final mark of those who are chosen. This separation is not always physical, though it often manifests in a life that looks different from the world around them. While others chase after pleasure and comfort, the chosen ones are drawn to prayer, solitude, and communion with God. While others indulge in compromise, they pursue holiness, not out of legalism, but out of a burning desire to stay close to the one who called them. Their lives often carry a sense of loneliness, for they cannot walk in the same direction as everyone else. They may appear misunderstood or even rejected by society, but this separation is a divine seal marking them as vessels for a higher purpose. The world may not understand them, but heaven knows them intimately, for they have been set apart for a time when their voice, their authority, and their presence will be desperately needed. The sacred trust of this supernatural anointing is not something to be taken lightly. It is not a talent to be displayed or a tool for personal advancement. It is a holy mantle that carries both power and responsibility. Those entrusted with it are called to lead souls through deception, to shine light in darkness, and to carry the truth of God's kingdom even when it costs them their lives. They are entrusted with influence not to build personal kingdoms, but to draw people back to the eternal King. They are given authority not to lord over others, but to serve as shepherds, guiding and protecting the flock in a time of great spiritual danger. This trust is sacred because it is tied to eternal souls, and mishandling it can lead to consequences that ripple far beyond this life. The weight of this calling ensures that only those who have passed through purification, testing, and separation are ready to bear it. For if given to the unprepared, this power could corrupt, destroy, or mislead. That is why God guards it so carefully, ensuring that only the ones who have proven faithful in the hidden places are elevated in the open. The chosen ones have endured seasons of silence where it seemed like God was absent, yet they remained faithful. They have walked through valleys of pain and rejection, yet they did not curse His name. They have been tempted with shortcuts and compromises, yet they chose the narrow path. It is this track record of hidden obedience that qualifies them for the visible anointing. As the end times unfold, the world will look for leaders, voices, and guides, but not every voice will carry truth. False prophets, deceivers, and manipulators will rise, performing wonders that mimic the power of God. But the chosen ones, purified and set apart, will stand apart, for the authenticity of their anointing cannot be counterfeited. Their words will pierce deeper than deception, their presence will carry the weight of heaven, and their authority will silence lies. They will not need to defend themselves with arguments, because the Spirit of God will confirm their calling with undeniable power. This anointing also carries protection, for those who are set apart are guarded by heaven itself. While others fall to deception or destruction, the chosen ones walk with a covering that cannot be breached by the enemy. They are not immune to trials, but their destiny cannot be stolen, for God Himself has sealed them. This divine seal ensures that what He has placed upon them will remain until their mission is complete. No amount of opposition, slander, or attack can undo what heaven has decreed. Their set-apartness makes them untouchable in the spiritual realm, for the authority of their calling is backed by the King of Kings. The journey to carry such a mantle is never easy, but it is always worth it. The chosen ones emerge from their wilderness seasons not broken, but refined. They carry scars that testify of battles fought and won, tears that watered the seeds of their anointing, and faith that has been tested in the furnace of affliction. These are the marks of those whom God can trust. They are not perfect, but they are surrendered. They are not flawless, but they are faithful. And because of this, they are prepared to lead others through the darkest days the world will ever see, pointing them to the only true source of hope and salvation. This heavenly power is a clear sign of divine selection, marking the chosen ones as vessels of light and messengers of truth in a world overshadowed by chaos. It is not something that can be hidden, for when God places his seal upon an individual, their very presence testifies to something beyond the natural. They may not carry titles or recognition from men, yet they carry an authority that the spirit realm instantly recognizes. Darkness knows them, angels stand with them, and heaven itself moves through them. This power is not earned through human effort, nor achieved by religious performance. It is the mark of divine election, a gift bestowed upon those predestined for a sacred mission. When such an anointing rests on a person, it becomes evident that they are not operating in their own strength, but under the covering of the Almighty. The world is engulfed in confusion, deception, and spiritual blindness, yet in the midst of it God raises individuals who embody clarity, truth, and heavenly order. These chosen ones are not just speakers of truth, but living representations of it. The light they carry exposes lies wherever it shines, unsettling those who have built their lives upon falsehoods. Their presence alone can stir conviction in hearts, awaken dormant callings, and break chains of bondage without them saying a word. This is because the power resting upon them is not merely influence but divine radiance, the kind of light that pierces through the deepest shadows. People may not always understand why they are drawn to these messengers, but it is the Spirit of God within them pulling souls toward the truth they carry. The chosen ones marked with this heavenly power are never ordinary, even if their outward lives appear simple. Their anointing distinguishes them in ways that words cannot fully explain. In gatherings, they stand out not by force but by spiritual gravity. In conversations, their words linger longer than others, carrying weight far beyond human eloquence. They may not seek attention, but attention finds them because their selection by heaven cannot be ignored. This power makes them targets of both admiration and opposition, for while some are drawn to their light, others are offended by it. Darkness resists what it cannot control, and so these vessels often experience resistance, criticism, and attack. Yet this opposition only confirms the authenticity of their calling, for the light always provokes the shadow. This divine selection is not random, nor is it based on human qualifications. Many of those chosen would have been overlooked by society, dismissed as unworthy, unqualified, or incapable. But God delights in choosing the vessels that man rejects, for his glory shines brightest in those who could never boast of their own ability. The chosen ones often carry stories of brokenness, seasons of wilderness, and histories marked by pain. Yet it is precisely this brokenness that makes them usable, for their wounds become windows through which heaven's light can shine. Their scars testify not of defeat but of survival, and their survival testifies of God's sustaining power. In this way, their very lives become sermons of truth, messages written not on paper but on human souls. Being marked as vessels of light means they cannot conform to the patterns of this world. They walk differently, think differently, and live differently. Their priorities are not shaped by culture but by eternity. While others chase wealth, fame, and recognition, the chosen ones pursue righteousness, truth, and intimacy with God. Their value system is inverted compared to the world's, and though this makes them misunderstood, it also makes them trustworthy. They cannot be bribed by money or swayed by applause, for their loyalty belongs to a kingdom not of this world. This loyalty is what makes them dangerous to the powers of darkness, for they cannot be manipulated or silenced. They live and move for the pleasure of God alone, and in this surrender lies their unshakable strength. The mark of divine selection carries a sense of weight that cannot be escaped. The chosen ones feel it in their spirit long before others recognize it outwardly. They often sense from a young age that they are different, though they may not fully understand why. Their journey is marked by divine interruptions, supernatural encounters, and an inner pull towards something greater. Even in seasons when they try to blend into the world, their spirit does not allow them to. They are constantly drawn back into alignment with God's will, for the heavenly seal upon them ensures that they cannot stray too far. This seal is not only a mark of identity, but also a safeguard, protecting them from paths that would derail their destiny. In a world overshadowed by chaos, the role of these messengers becomes more crucial than ever. They are carriers of truth in an age of deception, vessels of clarity when confusion reigns, and bearers of light when darkness grows thicker. The words they release are not mere opinions, but divine revelations meant to realign humanity with heaven's order. They expose the hidden agendas of the enemy, awaken the slumbering, and call the lost back into the arms of God. Their truth-telling is not always welcomed, but it is always necessary, for without their voices many would remain trapped in lies. Even when their messages bring discomfort, it is the discomfort that precedes deliverance. The chosen ones also carry a supernatural resilience that allows them to endure storms others cannot withstand. Chaos may rage around them, but the light within them does not flicker. They may be persecuted, slandered, or abandoned, yet they do not break. This endurance is evidence of the heavenly power sustaining them, for on their own they would have crumbled long ago. The divine selection upon their lives ensures that they are upheld by a strength not their own. They walk through fire without being consumed, through floods without drowning, because the one who marked them also preserves them. Their survival in circumstances that should have destroyed them becomes a testimony that strengthens the faith of others, proving that God is real, faithful, and present. This power is also contagious in the sense that it ignites faith in those who encounter it. When people come into contact with the chosen ones, something shifts in their spirit. Dormant gifts begin to stir, faith begins to rise, and hope is reignited. It is as though the light they carry awakens light in others, reminding souls of who they truly are and who they were created to be. This ripple effect is one of the reasons God places such anointing on his messengers, for they are not meant to hoard the light, but to multiply it. Their presence becomes a catalyst for awakening, sparking movements of transformation that spread far beyond what they could accomplish alone. Yet this power is never without cost. Those marked as vessels of light often endure loneliness, misunderstanding, and rejection. They are called to walk roads few are willing to travel, to stand when others bow, and to speak when silence would be easier. The very light that makes them chosen also isolates them, for not everyone can handle the intensity of their calling. Still, they walk faithfully, knowing that their lives are not their own but instruments in the hands of the Creator. Their sacrifices, though painful, become seeds of eternal harvest, producing fruit that will remain long after their earthly journey is complete. As the end times advance and chaos increases, the visibility of these chosen ones will grow. They will rise not by self-promotion, but by divine elevation, positioned exactly where God needs them to be. Their voices will cut through noise, their light will pierce through darkness, and their truth will guide many back to the path of salvation. The world will recognize them not because they seek recognition, but because their authenticity will shine too brightly to be ignored. Their lives will stand as undeniable evidence of God's hand upon them, and their impact will echo into eternity.